The screen crackles to life with shaky camcorder footage. A little girl in a sunflower yellow dress spins through a crowded 4th of July barbecue, her laughter cutting through the hum of cicadas. Fireworks burst overhead, painting the Indiana sky in reds and blues. Suddenly, the footage freezes on her face, big brown eyes, a gap-toothed smile before cutting to black. A chilling voiceover whispers, "On July 4th, 2015, Emily Harper vanished." For 10 years, her screams were silenced, until one night changed everything. The screen pulses with a heartbeat, then slams into the title, "Abducted, a Decade in Shadows." Bloomington, Indiana, July 4th, 2015. The Harper family's backyard buzzed with life. The smell of charcoal and hot dogs hung heavy in the humid air, mingling with the sharp crack of sparklers and the laughter of kids racing through the grass. Bloomington, Indiana, was small-town America, and its core porch swings, pickup trucks, and neighbors who knew your name. The Harpers' annual 4th of July barbecue was a tradition, drawing half the neighborhood to their modest ranch house on Maple Street. At the center of it all was 5-year-old Emily Harper, a whirlwind of energy in her bright yellow dress, chasing fireflies as the sun dipped below the horizon. Sarah Harper, Emily's mother, balanced a tray of deviled eggs, her eyes flicking toward her daughter every few seconds. "Emily, stay close, honey," she called, her voice warm but edged with a mother's instinct. Emily giggled, her pigtails bouncing as she darted toward her cousin, Tommy, a gangly 17-year-old with a mop of dark hair and a nervous habit of cracking his knuckles. Tommy was there with his dad, Carl, Sarah's older brother. Carl was a rough-around-the-edges drifter, a man who lived out of a beat-up Chevy and showed up unannounced with a smoker's cough and a fake smile. Sarah never liked how Carl's eyes lingered too long, but she brushed it off. Family was family. "After all, Tommy, keep an eye on her, will ya?" Carl said, lighting a Marlboro and wandering toward the cooler for a beer. Tommy nodded, his gaze fixed on the ground, avoiding Emily's eager tug on his sleeve. "Come on, Tommy, let's play hide-and-seek," she squealed, bolting toward the edge of the yard where the lawn met a thick line of oak trees. Sarah glanced over, her heart catching for a moment. "Emily, not too far," she shouted, but the crowd's chatter swallowed her words. She turned to set the tray down, just for a second. When she looked back, Emily was gone. Panic erupted like wildfire. Sarah's screams pierced the night as neighbors fanned out, combing the yard, the street, the nearby woods. Mark Harper, Emily's father, tore through the trees, his voice hoarse from calling her name. Carl took charge, barking orders like a man possessed, while Tommy trailed behind, pale and silent, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. By 10 p.m., police cruisers lined Maple Street, their red and blue lights cutting through the darkness. Flyers went up by morning, missing Emily Harper, 5 years old, last seen in a yellow dress. Her face was everywhere: gas stations, diners, the local Walmart. The story hit CNN, Fox, every major network. Girl vanishes from family barbecue in small-town America. Sarah and Mark clung to each other, their faces hollow on TV screens as they begged for their daughter's return. The Bloomington PD chased leads a grainy gas station video in Terre Haute, a reported sighting in Cincinnati, but they all led nowhere. Carl stayed close to close, organizing search parties and crying crocodile tears for the cameras. Tommy barely spoke, his eyes darting away whenever Emily's name came up. The town rallied, tying yellow ribbons to every tree. But hope faded with each passing week. Emily Harper became another face on a milk carton, another statistic in a country where 800,000 kids go missing every year. But Emily wasn't far. She was 40 miles away, hidden in a place no one thought to look: the cabin. Hoosier National Forest, 2015 to 2025. Deep in the Hoosier National Forest, where the trees grew thick and the roads turned to dirt, Carl owned a crumbling hunting cabin. It was a forgotten place, its warped planks and rusted tin roof swallowed by weeds and shadows. No one in the family had been there in years: not Sarah, not Mark, not even the cops who questioned Carl early on. That's where he took Emily that night, her small body slumped in the passenger seat of his Chevy. Knocked out by sedatives he'd crushed into her lemonade. Carl wasn't a master criminal. Just a man with a mean streak and a grudge. He'd grown up in Sarah's shadow, the black sheep who never got the love she did. Taking Emily was his revenge, a sick way to hurt the sister who'd built a life he could never have. He told himself it was temporary, that he'd let her go when the heat died down. But days turned into months, and the lie grew roots. Emily woke in the cabin's basement, a cold, damp space with a single flickering bulb and a stained mattress on the dirt floor. Her screams echoed off the concrete, unheard by anyone but Carl. He fed her scrap spam, stale crackers, and spun a web of lies. Your mom and dad gave you up. I'm all you've got now. Tommy, still a teenager, was trapped in his father's orbit. Carl's temper was a guillotine, and Tommy had the scars to prove it. He brought Emily water, snuck her extra food when Carl wasn't looking, but he never opened the door. Fear kept him tethered to his father's will. The years crawled by. Emily grew up in that basement, her world shrinking to 4 walls and a sliver of light through a cracked window high above. She was 8 when Carl started letting her upstairs, but only when he was there, a heavy chain locked around her ankle, bolted to a radiator. She taught herself to read from old Field and Stream magazines, scratching words into the floorboards with a rusted nail. She counted days, then years, marking them on the wall. 1,825 scratches by her 10th birthday. Her memories of the outside world, her mom's laugh, her dad's bare hugs faded like old photographs. Carl's voice filled the void. His rules are only reality. Tommy, now in his 20s, was her only glimpse of kindness. He'd sit with her when Carl was out, his eyes heavy with shame. I'm sorry, Em, he'd whisper, but he never did more. He was as much a prisoner as she was, bound by fear and blood. Carl's drinking got worse, his rages more unpredictable. He'd disappear for days, leaving Tommy to guard the cabin, a job that weighed heavier with every passing year. Sarah and Mark, meanwhile, never gave up. They sold their house to pay private investigators, their marriage buckling under the strain. Sarah drove the backroads of southern Indiana, chasing rumors a girl spotted at a gas station. A voice overheard in a diner. She plastered new flyers every year. Emily's face age progressed by forensic artists. The case grew cold. But Sarah's heart didn't. She'd sit in Emily's old room, clutching a stuffed bunny, whispering, I'm still looking, baby. The Escape, August 2025. By summer 2025, Emily was 15. Her once bright eyes dulled by a decade of darkness. She was thin, her brown hair a tangled mess, her skin ghostly from years without sun. But her spirit hadn't broken. She'd memorized Carl's habits, his late-night binges, his trips to town for whiskey and smokes. She'd learned to pick at the chain's lock with a bent nail, though it never gave. Tommy was her only shot. One muggy August night, Carl passed out on the porch, a bottle of Jim Beam rolling from his hand. The cabin was quiet, the air thick with the scent of pine and decay. Emily, allowed upstairs for the evening, saw her chance. She knelt beside Tommy, who was staring at the floor, his hands trembling. Tommy, please, she whispered, her voice steady despite the fear clawing her chest. I can't do this anymore, help me. Tommy's eyes met hers, those same brown eyes from the home video, now sharp with desperation. He'd spent 10 years drowning in guilt, his father's shadow suffocating him. Something snapped. He grabbed a crowbar from the shed, his breath ragged, and pried the chain from the radiator. The metal groaned, then gave way. Run, he said, shoving a crumpled map and a flashlight into her hands. Head north. Find the highway. Don't look back. Emily bolted into the forest, her bare feet tearing on rocks and roots. The flashlight's beam slicing through the dark. Behind her, Carl's shout shattered the silence, followed by the crash of glass. Tommy stayed behind, facing his father's fury to give her time. Emily ran, her lungs burning, her heart pounding like a war drum. She didn't know if she'd make it, but she knew she'd never go back. Hours later, she stumbled onto State Road 37, her dress torn, her feet bloodied. A trucker, hauling lumber through the night, spotted her waving the flashlight like a beacon. He slammed on the brakes, called 911, and wrapped her in a flannel jacket. By dawn, Emily was in a Bloomington hospital, her story pouring out to detectives who could barely believe it. The reckoning. The police stormed the cabin at first light. Carl fought, his fists swinging until they cuffed him, his face a mask of rage. Tommy didn't resist, his confession spilling out like a dam breaking. How Carl planned it, how he'd been too scared to act, how he'd finally set Emily free. The media swarmed, kidnapped girl found after decade in captivity. Sarah and Mark raced to the hospital, their reunion with Emily a collision of tears and disbelief. She was alive, but the girl they'd lost was a ghost, replaced by a teenager with scars no one could see. The trial gripped the nation. Carl claimed he'd protected Emily, his lies collapsing under the weight of evidence, the basement, the chain, Emily's carved calendar on the wall. Tommy took a plea deal, testifying against his father for a reduced sentence. Sarah sat in the courtroom, her eyes boring into Carl, her grief now a blade of anger. Emily stayed away, starting therapy to reclaim a life she barely remembered. By fall, Emily was in a new school, her identity shielded by court order. She flinched at loud noises, shied away from crowds, but found comfort in small things, the crunch of leaves underfoot, her mom's voice singing lullabies. Sarah and Mark rebuilt their lives around her, their love a lifeline through the pain. The story closes on a quiet 4th of July, 2025. Emily stands in the Harper's new backyard, watching fireworks bloom in the sky. For the first time in a decade, she doesn't fear the noise. She's not healed, not yet, but she's free. The camera lingers on her face, those brown eyes, now holding a flicker of hope before fading to black. Emily Harper survived 10 years of unimaginable horror. Today, she rebuilds her life with her family. Carl faces life without parole. Tommy, sentenced to 5 years, is eligible for parole in 2027. The Harpers ask for privacy as they heal. The final shot shows a yellow ribbon tied to a maple tree, swaying in the breeze, a symbol of hope for every missing child.